Okay, so thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. Some of you have been involved in previous sessions that we've held, just informing you of changes that are happening within the apprenticeship sector and sort of wider reforms. So I want to take the opportunity today to just walk people through some propositions that we're looking at here of the endpoint assessment organisation and just gather some views and feedback. So I have muted everyone at the moment and we'll have time for questions at the end, okay? So if everyone can keep themselves on mute, that's lovely, thank you. So let's just have a little look at the background and where we are at the moment. So LEIA Assessment is a brand name for the Apprenticeship Endpoint Assessment Organisation, which was created by LEIA in 2021. So we gained Ofqual recognition from the beginning of 2022, which essentially means that we are regulated by the qualifications regulator in England. The reason we set up a separate brand name was for two reasons. The first reason was to demonstrate a level of division between the Endpoint Assessment Organisation and that of the LEIA Education Trust. And we needed to demonstrate to Ofqual that operationally we did look a little bit different. So moving forward to where we are now. So since 2022, we have operated as an Ofqual regulated awarding organisation that only offers endpoint assessments and does not offer regulated qualifications. So what this basically means is that some of the rules that awarding organisations are required to abide by are disapplied, which reduces the level of burden of regulation on those awarding organisations that only offer endpoint assessment. So we only tend to operate within the lift and escalator sector, including stair lifts and other types of lifting platforms. And then we took the decision to expand into allied sectors. So we now work in the lifting equipment and engineer surveyor fields as well. So at the beginning of 2025, the Department for Education announced reforms which were intended to bring around efficiencies in the delivery of apprenticeship assessments. So the main area that we want to explore today are around the reforms which impact how awarding organisations will design, deliver and quality assure endpoint assessments. And as a result of those, we'll also look at the wider opportunities that this could present to us. So one of the things that awarding organisations will be required to do is design and develop apprenticeship assessments. They'll also be required to develop assessments suitable for centre-based assessments. One of the things I also just want to add in, which is literally hot off the press and I've not had a chance to fully digest it yet, is that yesterday the Department for Education released its post-16 education white paper. And there's a number of things in there, but probably one of the most relevant to what we're discussing today is that there will be funded units for apprenticeships that will come from the levy and from the adult education budget. So we don't know what that looks like yet. We think it will potentially be actual like 1 unit qualifications as opposed to training. I think we were hoping that they would expand it into training from the levy, but we don't think that's the case. But they haven't clarified that yet, so it might still be the case. But that in itself potentially gives us more of an incentive to look at expanding our provision into full awarding. So the requirement of this new era of apprenticeship assessment moves LEIA closer towards that of an awarding organisation with full scope, which essentially means we would look to develop qualifications. So we're exploring the opportunities that this might bring for the lift sector and for those sectors that we're currently working with. As we're working closer with allied sectors and other trade associations, we can see opportunities for us to work with them more and to support them in their skills development. And when we know that skills is a massive agenda for the government, we know that most of the sectors that we talk to, a skill shortage is a huge problem for them. One thing that we need to make clear is this would sit outside of the LEIA Qualification Centre and the LEIA Education Trust. So this would be an expansion of what we're currently doing under the Endpoint Assessment Organisation. So we just want to start the first of the questions that we're going to ask you today. So let's see if this actually works. So I'm looking for some feedback from you. So as we know, anyone who deals with any regulated qualifications, so the certificates that are issued from awarding organisations carry an awarding organisation's branding. So we want to know what opportunities could LEIA Awarding create for our sector's future and how might wider industries receive us. So we're just going to launch a word cloud now. We want you to pop in any words that come into your head, and let's see if this actually works. This is me being quite a bit techie here. So you should see this pop up on your screen, and if you could pop in your thoughts here. Essentially, what I'm trying to gauge from this is whether or not an awarding organisation which was specifically branded to LEIA or the Lift and Escalator Industry Association would put people off for those sectors who aren't directly into the lift sector. So would you consider a potential a different name, or we don't want to limit the opportunity because of the name of the awarding organisation? There's lots of opportunities have come up. Standard. Respected, great for our industry. New talent. Interest, guys. What does guys mean? What we'll do is we're going to leave this open so you can have a little think about this and pop something in perhaps later on as we go through. In order to remove this from your screen, I think you just have to press the little, oh, we've got all sorts coming through now. Engineering disciplines, knowledge and more visibility. That's great, thank you. I think you need to just click the cross on the right hand side of the word cloud to get it off of your screen, she says. So if you could just do that and then we'll move on, but we will leave that open and you can contribute to that further if you want to. Okay, so I'm going to have a little run through now about the potential things that we could offer if we moved into a full awarding organisation. So regulated qualifications, so that is that could be an up-to-date qualification. So if you have a look at the qualifications, so these are regulated. So these are the ones that are issued by an awarding organisation and they carry the Ofqual logo. the positives around regulated qualifications are that they're recognised and they're transferable. So essentially, you can move potentially between employers, and they recognise that certificate. Within the sector that we operate in, that would be something like the MVQ, which essentially is seen by the licence to practice in this sector, and indeed many sectors. We would be looking at providing up-to-date qualifications. There's a view that some of the qualifications that we're working with, which are regulated at the moment, are outdated, and they don't actually reflect practices that happen. So there's an opportunity for us to consult with the sector, potentially align any regulated qualifications with that of the apprenticeship standard, if there is an appetite for that, and we could do that across different sectors as well. In lots of sectors now, the kind of occupational standard is seen as the apprenticeship standard, so it could be that there are regulated qualifications which would align with that. We are aware that the current MVQ that's operating in the lift sector was launched in 2010 and has not actually had what we would call a major review since that date, and actually is a much smaller qualification than that of the apprenticeship. So it could be that we look at expanding that. There's also options for smaller sized qualifications, such as certificate, awards, or single units. So you could use that to bolster existing competence. And obviously, these would have the kudos of having the Ofqual logo attached to them. So we're just going to open another poll now. So in your view, is there a need for LEIA to develop regulated qualifications? Hopefully by magic that shall appear on your screen. That's quite simple, that one. That's a yes or a no. Okay, that's good. So we've got currently, we're moving up and down between a sort of 75%, 20% yes, no divide. Just waiting for some more responses to come in. Okay, so we'll leave this one open if anyone wants to respond after that. So we've got another question we want to ask as well. So this is perhaps a potentially more loaded one. So would organisations switch from another awarding organisation with confidence? Okay. So we've got a mixture at the moment. So we've had 8 responses, and definitely a mixed response, which I think is something which I expected. Quite heavy on the maybe. So obviously that makes a lot of sense. Okay, lovely. So we'll leave this one open if people want to respond later. So the next potential offer could be something which would be known as customised but non-regulated qualifications. So they're usually designed for potentially a specific company or need, and these would broadly work the same as regulated qualifications, but they would be more freedom from the design and delivery element. They could be tailored to a specific need within a sector, an organisation. One of the ones that we work with in this sector is the performing engineer's operation working safely in an engineering environment. That's a non-regulated customised qualification, and I know that lots of people complete that one, and it's seen as kind of the first step into being able to work safely within the lift or escalator sector. I believe some of the other trade associations have things like safety passports or initial units that they have put together. So this could be an example of a customised but non-regulated qualification. So these would still require an awarding organisation to complete an annual check by an external quality assurer, and check the rigour of which this has been developed. But it is very important to differentiate between a regulated and a non-regulated qualification, and it is an organisation's responsibility to ensure that anyone completing these qualifications know if it's a regulated or a non-regulated qualification. One of the great things about these is that these qualifications could be issued with certificates which are co-branded. So if an organisation had worked with an awarding organisation to make these qualifications, then it could be issued with both the awarding organisation logo and that of the organisation who had helped to co-develop it, but this would not have an Ofqual logo on it. I'm just going to ask you another question. So would you think there is an appetite for non-regulated or bespoke qualifications? Okay. So we've got the responses coming in and we're on 100% for yes at the moment. Oh, no, we've got a no. Some no's. Okay. Again, I'm going to leave that open, and if people want to contribute towards that a little bit later, that's fine. So the next potential thing that we could offer is endorsed training. So often organisations such as large employers, training providers, or professional bodies or other trade associations will develop their own training programmes to meet a need within their sector or business. Awarding organisations can assess these training programmes against a set of criteria, and if they meet those requirements, they can endorse the programs. I think like sometimes you can get like CPD endorsed training and things as well, so it wouldn't be dissimilar to that. So these could be marketed as endorsed, and they could also carry that co-branded certificate from the awarding organisation and the organisation who designed them. Just going to ask you another question. So would organisations value their programmes becoming formally endorsed and checked by an awarding organisation? That's great. Thank you for those responses. Again, I shall leave that open for you if you wish to respond to those via the chat. Okay, so we also have our apprenticeship assessments, which is obviously what we're doing at the moment. In England, they will continue to be regulated assessments. There is the possibility for us to look at non-regulated commercial assessments for apprentices who are in the devolved nations. And that would allow us to provide a little bit more of a consistent approach. I know that we have been approached previously by employers who have apprentices in Scotland and in Wales, and organisations are having to deliver their own assessments, so they want that consistency throughout their staff. So there is the potential that we could offer a non-regulated option for assessment. Obviously, there'll still be the core market here of assessments in England. We're still figuring out what that looks like due to these reforms. So that could be that that might be something which is partially centre delivered, but we will be consulting a bit further on that shortly anyway. There's also the possibility that in addition to expansion into full awarding within England, we could look to gain recognition in the devolved nations. So you have a qualification in Wales, who oversee the qualifications in Wales and works with the Welsh Government on specific regulations. You have the SQA, who is the Scottish Qualification Authority. They manage qualifications in Scotland, and again is involved in the recognition of professional qualifications through its regulatory arms, which is SQA accreditation. And then CCEA, which is the regulator within Northern Ireland, along with the CCEA. So that is something that we could look at potentially doing as well, just to widen our offer, and obviously service those members or organisations who operate outside of England as well. I think this is our final question, so thank you. So, so would organisations pay for a commercial assessment of apprenticeships in devolved nations? Okay, thank you. Responses coming in as kind of a 50-50 at the moment. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you. So in terms of next steps, I'm more than happy to provide more information on this, but I wanted at this stage to float this idea and give an indication of what this might look like and get some feedback. So once we're sort of confident that there would be an appetite for this service, we envisage it would take around 12 to 18 months to initially implement. And what that would look like is we would need to speak to Ofqual, we would need to put in an application to fully expand our provision. And also at the same time, we would look to, oh, sorry, can whoever is unmuted mute themselves, please? Just do that. Yep, so we would, and would also look to start working with people within the sectors to collaborate with them and look at qualifications and what the appetite is. But we would need input from stakeholders on that. And we'd also need to consider centres and organisations would need to have a think about whether or not they're willing and able to apply to be a centre in order to work with LEIA. That unfortunately is non-negotiable. That is a requirement of Ofqual. So that's what we're looking at the moment. I've whistle-stopped through that. I appreciate it. Has anybody got any questions? I'm happy to take those now if we do. If you could pop your hand up, that would be fab. I don't think I can see any. Obviously, I'm happy to. Oh, Mark has his hand up. Mark, can you?
Yeah, just really not so much questions, really. Just you've given us a lot to think about. So at this stage, I don't really have any specific questions, but I'd like to explore some of these things a little bit more within our sort of local community of engineer inspection and get back to you. But I think it's really exciting.
Lovely, thanks, Mark. No, I appreciate that there are definitely things to think about, and probably over the last month I have filtered out quite a bit of information. And what I would say as well is that the reforms are still coming and we're very much still trying to figure out what that looks like for ourselves, but we've been presented with an opportunity where we're being pushed down a particular avenue by Ofqual. So it's only appropriate for us to explore what that opportunity looks like, to take some control over the qualifications and what that we have within our sectors and our allied sectors, and seeing whether or not there's an opportunity to work with those allied sectors as well, for them to benefit from the work that we do. So we're absolutely keen to have those conversations. It is our intention to follow this up with a short consultation survey, which will kind of bring together the information that you've been provided, those who've been on both sessions. We held another session at the beginning of October. But I'm absolutely happy to talk to anyone privately. Oh, Chris, you have your hand up. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, just to echo what Mark said, really, I mean, this is really exciting, but if you've been listening to the news over the last couple of days, you'll know that City and Guilds has just been sold to a Greek company. And having worked with many awarding bodies, I think we've got to get behind stuff like this. You know, at the end of the day, what we want is that sector knowledge and understanding, and I think it's fantastic. And absolutely, we will be supporting this. I just get concerned about the understanding of awarding bodies, because you know how widely known is LEIA to some of our potential customers throughout the UK and abroad. But early days, you know, 18 months to build something like this is probably reasonable. It's exciting, and I think everybody that's on the call should really consider this long and hard, because we don't know what's going to happen to some of the bigger organisations as well, because there's 3 more that are going through transition, and they're big awarding bodies. So yeah, food for thought, Karen, so thank you for that.
Thanks, Chris. I mean, one of the key takeaways from this post-16 education white paper yesterday is that there will be a focus on looking at more sector-specific establishments, and so moving away from the more generic type of HE establishment, potentially awarding organisation. So, which is interesting, because I think anyone who's worked in HE or FE, and it's particularly in things with like independent training providers or more niche or environment like organisations or EPAOs like ours, we've been saying for a long time that actually these assessments and qualifications and training needs to be delivered by specialists. So the fact that this has been recognised in the Department of Education's white paper is intriguing, and I'm interested to see where that goes. Rob, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, it is interesting. I would say that, to my mind, the customers that we work with they value having an EAL recognition behind the qualifications. I think and again, I'm looking at this obviously on the lift and escalator side, rather than, I appreciate probably a third of the people on the call are not from the lift and escalator industry, so I have to bear that in mind. But on the lift and escalator industry side of this conversation, the expertise is obviously extremely important, that LEIA, because without that, you know, those qualifications don't work, as we know. You know, we need to be involved in the development of them. But for them not to be kind of rubber stamped by EAL as they are now, I don't know what appetite there would be from the employers. Obviously, there's some on the call now, but the majority are not. But the involvement, yes, 100%. And obviously, Chris and the other chap are not from the lift and escalator industry. Clearly, bespoke qualifications for them are interesting. We have those, and I guess the benefit would be that you'd have more control, whereas now you're kind of relying on EAL opening the door to allow you to update these qualifications. On the devolved nations point, and I know there's a couple of our customers on this call which are either based in the devolved nations or at least have offices there. In our experience, they are very, very protective of their own schemes, their own, typically the framework apprenticeships. We don't tend to get too involved with those, certainly where apprenticeships are concerned. So I'd be interested to know what the take is from those countries. But yeah, it's something worth consideration. Certainly, in my mind, I was coming into this call thinking that there was going to be some discussion on the more recent developments with the University of Northampton academic modules for the apprentices. I didn't think it was going to be about potentially MVQs being hosted or housed and developed by LEIA. That is food for thought that I'm sure people want to take away.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And you've made some really valid points around the trust the sector has in EAL. I think that, and obviously that they are one of the main awarding organisations for engineering. I think as a sector, we're a very small part of what they do, and obviously the MVQ that we currently trust in our sector is part of a much larger qualification of which we are a small module of, and actually anything to do with those qualifications, the specialist areas, it always comes back through LEIA anyway. So EAL do rely on LEIA for.
Well, look, absolutely, they do. And I would say to you, I wouldn't play it down because historically, and I don't know the status now, but LEIA were the second, I think they were the second biggest customer of EAL in engineering, maintenance, and those related qualifications. Second only behind the military.
Yeah.
You know, so I wouldn't play down LEIA's part in, you know, if you EAL, that would be a big concern for them if it was taken away from them, which, you know, I don't care about. You know, if it's right for the industry, it's right for the industry. But they're such a big, you know, body, a bit like City and Guilds. Obviously, City and Guilds are bigger internationally than EAL, but in construction and engineering, like you say in the UK, if something's got EAL on it, then people take it pretty seriously because they know, you know what's behind that. With LEIA, even in the industry, in the lift and escalator industry, so I said, what Chris mentioned it there about who are LEIA to some degree as an award organisation. Now, for the lift and escalator industry, LEIA are everything. But to be the ultimate awarding body to rubber stamp that qualification, I don't know. Is the answer, and it won't be up to training providers like us. It'll be probably the employers that speak about that. But yeah, so I wouldn't play down LEIA's you know, the amount of weight there with EAL because it certainly always used to be a very, very large volume of registrations, second only to the military, like I say.
Yeah, well, you've added some really valuable points there, Rob. And again, it's around trust, which is a huge thing, and that's why we were interested in the view, not just from our sector, but from the other sectors represented on this call about the name and the branding and what that would mean to those sectors, because it's certainly a consideration that we want to have. And you know, what we want to do, obviously, predominantly as LEIA sits now, we're a membership organisation working for the sector, and this provides opportunities with outside of that. So, you know, your feedback is really valuable and incredibly valid. So thanks.
I mean, I'm slightly ignorant to what the Lifting Equipment Association have got in place already in terms of qualifications. So I don't know if there's something there that they'd move it from EAL over to LEIA, for example, or whether there's nothing really there at the moment. So actually the creation of something would be good. Obviously, the Lift and Escalator Industry Association have got a 50-year history of these qualifications with EAL and EMTA and whatever it was before them. So moving away and change, as you know, as we spoke about earlier in the year, is daunting for many people. Sorry, Chris, I'll let you.
I mean, it's creating a discussion, which is what this is all about. I think my only concern, and I absolutely endorse and support this entirely, is that government are looking at trying to streamline lots of awarding bodies, card schemes, passport schemes, and the like, because of the confusion that's out there. So in the Lift and Escalator Association, LEIA stands for exactly what it's meant to stand for. Outside of that, that's where I struggle a little bit, but that doesn't mean it's not right to challenge and to do something quite unique and quite clever, to be fair, because from our sector, it's very misunderstood. It's also misrepresented. So when you speak to people like Sitting Guilds, they don't understand what we do. They have a good idea, but they don't understand what we do. So having something quite specific is the right thing to do. My only concern is government are really rationalisation. Sorry about that. I will mute that now. It's always the same. We just need to make sure that it's done properly, because I guess the biggest concern for me is that there's that many card schemes and passport schemes. Every day we get challenged as a business. What is that card scheme? So doing something that's unique, it's how it's marketed, how it's represented by the sector, and how we all support it and endorse it. It could be really, really the smartest thing to be done, but it's got to be done properly, because of all the awarding bodies that are out there, and we all use them, whether it's EAL, Sitting Guilds, NEBOSH, IOSH, or whoever it is, and there's lots of them out there. You're going to start seeing less of them, if I'm honest, because they're trying to standardise it. There should be repository across all of it, but over the next 5 years, there'll be a lot less than what there is today. That's my only concern.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, and we're in a really I don't know what the word is. There's a lot going on at the moment, and you know, we're trying to position ourselves so that we're securing things for us, the sector. And you know, this is the point of this consultation, is to see what people think. You know, you can't move an idea forward if there's not the support there. But we're keen to do it properly and to take the right steps. Right, has anyone else got anything else they wish to ask? If not, we'll ring off. I allocated an hour just in case there was lots of questions, but we've had a few, so that's great. Again, happy to chat to anyone privately that doesn't want to ask in an open forum. I appreciate that. Other than that, just thank you for giving up more time this morning to listen to what I had to say. And if anyone has any questions, give us a shout privately. Okay.
Thanks, Karen. How will this be taken forward, Karen, do you think? What do you envisage happening next?
So like I say, we're gonna send out a sort of a summative questionnaire just to gather collective feedback on a number of things, which will include the centre-based assessments for apprenticeships. So we're keen to know what people think about centre-based apprenticeships, centre-based apprenticeship assessments, and whether there's an appetite for that. There's a whole piece of work that we have to do as an awarding organisation anyway, kind of regardless of that outcome. It looks like we're still waiting for the first 5 assessment plans to be developed for those. We don't know when they're coming. Apparently they're coming soon. And we're waiting for more information from the Department for Education on related funding. So I think the landscape within the next 2 years is going to be really interesting. For us, if we, you know, obviously we've had internal conversations about this for a number of months. If we take this forward, we'll start work on this probably in the new year. Danielle, did I see your hand up? Was that
No, I was just looking for the thumb emoji, sorry.
Great stuff. Okay. All right then. Well, I'll sign off then. But again, if anyone wants to contact me privately, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Karen.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.